I was recently involved in a conversation with someone, and the topic came up of fame, particularly internet fame. And the conversation that ensued was pretty interesting. It was basically about the pitfalls of being famous and well known and the consequences of that. And one of the consequences of being famous and well known is that you tend to, perhaps almost axiomatically, get a little too big for your britches. Now, I want to tie this in to the topic of gurus, and you probably all know how much I just adore gurus. I think they're absolutely fantastic. The best thing since sliced bread, and the best thing since Ben and Jerry's fish food, as it were. But part of the issue surrounding guruism, and I'll include all sorts of personages here, Jordan Peterson, the pickup artists, you name it, is the feedback loop that they get. I want to distill the problem of guruism down to a few parts here. The problem with gurus and the problem with fame and being well known is that the vast majority of people let it get to their heads, right? And it then becomes almost indistinguishable whether or not this person is well known and famous, actually believes the things he's claiming and saying, or it doesn't. And more importantly, and this is the thing I like to stress and focus on, whether or not the things this person is saying are actually helpful to the individual. The first mainstream revelation that we had of the guru in recent years, it's a while back of course, was the Jordan Peterson phenomenon, where he simply said, clean your room, as if this were some great revelation, and 12 rules for life. A lot of stuff there, pot calling the kettle black, of course, but this is something that we see all the time. So if we take Peterson, for example, do we actually believe that he believes that he knows all the things he's talking about and what he's saying is good for individuals? Because fundamentally there's an issue here, right? Oftentimes you'll hear complaints, I've received complaints over the years, that I'm not, quote unquote, giving advice. I'm not offering real help. I'm not offering a path for men in particular to find their way out of the abyss. And that's fair enough. I'm almost religiously allergic to the idea of giving advice. But part of that stems from the simple fact that I acknowledge that I'm not a remarkable individual. I'm a little well known in the manosphere, but even if I were gigantically known, everyone knew about my channel and knew about what I said, that would change nothing about my own abilities, my character. So the issue I see, the ultimate harm that's caused by guruism, is tightly knit to this idea of fame and being well known. And it just seems to be inevitable that when people become really well known, they start believing in themselves a lot more because obviously they're getting a form of confirmation bias. The audience likes them and they basically start believing everything they say. And it creates this feedback loop. But where I have to come down hard here is the simple fact that therein lies enormous risk and danger, because the problems aren't that simple. And just because somebody has decided to arrogate to himself the role of dispenser of wisdom or advice doesn't mean that the advice or the wisdom is good. It really doesn't. We're so blinded in the current year by our lack of mentorship, by our lack of people we can look up to. And the closest approximation we can have is the online guru, the famous guy. Even Peterson. I mean, the fact that he went through that issue with benzodiazepine medication and then was in a coma and came back, sort of a resurrection story in itself, inspiring for people. But even in the manosphere, and in some cases, of course, when it comes to people selling tactical soap, it's obvious that it's disingenuous. This is nothing serious by any means. But at the same time, it's exploitative. So where does that line between exploitative, helpful, etc., lie? It's not entirely clear to me. But my position is pretty simple on this. If you're a well-known internet individual. Don't let that fame get to you. Now, I don't think anyone's immune to this, but just imagine a bygone era that isn't even so bygone, 40 years ago, where all these talking heads, most of them wouldn't even be around because there'd be no platform for them. And thus they never would have imagined themselves ending up in the situation they are now. The real danger here, gentlemen, is ego. Ego is a very important facet of human existence. You need it in order to get things done. But it can also be very harmful. It can desensitize you to other people's needs and wants. It can rob you of compassion. And the worst thing about it is, of course, the sin of pride, right? And it's very easy to fall for the sin of pride when you are well known or famous and people are listening to you and look up to you. But the reality is, people, YouTubers in particular, we don't know about your circumstances. We don't know about your individual situation. And as such, I think it's highly irresponsible to then say, you need to do this. And it goes without saying that people like the bathrobe man, who are literally charging $1,000 for an hour to talk to him, that isn't just irresponsible, that's downright exploitative. That's just con artistry at its finest. But even going out there and telling people in broad generalities what they need to do with their lives is potentially dangerous. And in my view, something that would be much more ideal but very difficult would be for individuals who are looking for aid, young men above all, help, to have it personalized. But I don't think very many people online are capable of that. And so I'm not really sure what the solution is. But inasmuch as doling out advice as a famous expert or guru tends to be, in my view, more harmful than it is helpful, I think, by and large, individuals should strive to refrain from that. And if you're not entirely sure what you're saying is helpful, then caveat it. Tell people you're not sure. Of course, that doesn't sell books, and that doesn't sell conversations, and that doesn't sell courses. But it's important. At the end of the day, people are struggling. Men, above all, are struggling. And if you're going to make their struggle even worse, what's really the point? To that I say, I'd rather remain silent and not dole out ridiculous advice that I'm not even capable of doing than damn a man to a fate that's potentially even worse than he already has. Now, that's for each individual to decide what he wants to do, but beware the risks of ego, beware the risks of fame, and take everything, including things I say, with a grain of salt. We're all just regular guys here behind the microphones, behind the videos, and people often forget that because somehow they've allowed themselves to be deluded enough to think that being a YouTuber is some grand title that qualifies you to say all sorts of things and do all sorts of things. But it's just not true. Anyways, as always, thank you for tuning in. Please hit the like button, subscribe, share, leave a comment. And if I'm still alive, I'll check you out later. And to quote a YouTuber I like a lot, may you wander in wisdom. Everyone take care. May the gods watch over you. Bye-bye. If you liked this video, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you enjoy my content, please consider making a donation or becoming a patron. Thanks for watching.